This is Jesse A. Beazley. I'm a World War II veteran. I was a combat rifleman in the infantry, and this is now January the 13th, 2004. I'm 80 years old now. Be 81 next month in February the 22nd. Thought I'd put a few things on here to have as a record for people that might be interested in years to come about war and what it's like. I'll tell it like it is. I went in from Nicholasville, Kentucky at 19 years old, and went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, took my basic training with the 75th Infantry Division, but then was transferred, went on maneuvers there with the 75th and took my basic and advanced training there. That was a new division we just activated to help activate that division. I was in service company then, but then I was transferred out after maneuvers in Louisiana and put in the 2nd Infantry Division. I went to New York City and left from Camp Shakes, New York, sailing to Glasgow, Scotland, which was 13 days and nights. And at that time, the German submarines were sinking a lot of ships, and we had a large convoy and had destroyers and cruisers protecting us. But we was attacked, but nobody, so they said, we seen them dropped in the depth charges and things, but they didn't hit any of our ships or anything. Landed in Glasgow, Scotland, went from there to England, and took training there in Flatland Sands, getting ready for the invasion of France, which they were planning on D-Day. Didn't know that then, but the 2nd Division had been selected to make that invasion, and it was in Ireland, but I was in England, and I was to be with a forward force that would go in with the 1st Infantry Division on June 6, 1944, and establish a headquarters for the 2nd Division there. I'll tell you some of the experience that I had on Omaha and Beach, and it might be interesting to somebody. We were put on ships and aimed to make the invasion on June the 5th, 1944, but the bad weather, Eisenhower called it off, and then they upped it till the 6th. But we were on the boats at that time, and a lot of troops got seasick because the channel was real rough, and it was cold. It was in June, but the water was icy cold. And finally on June the 6th, our ships that we was in went out, and within about 8 or 10 miles from Omaha Beach, then we went over the sides into the little Higby boats, I guess they were, with the drop-down ends, and it was really rough because those ropes were swinging back and forth. The sea was so rough it nearly knocked you off, and some of them did fall off or get hurt. But we went into the little boats and started in, and I couldn't see anything because I was hunched down in the boat, and as we went in, but I do remember seeing the looks on the faces of the young men. Most of them was 18, 19 years old. We had kidded and laughed like soldiers do, but all at once it got complete silence, and young men looked like old men. You could see their lips moving. We were praying. All of us was praying. I was praying. I didn't know whether I'd get hit and lose my legs or my sight, or I'd get killed quick, or I'd make it. And I thought of my home and my mom and my dog and my friends, and I wondered how in the world did this come me to be here in this situation as a young man, realizing that probably I didn't have much chance to live because I knew what was ahead of us there. And we had barrage balloons on the ships. I forgot to tell you that, to keep the German fighter plane from drumming down and strafing us too close. But we could see the gliders going in, being pulled. All the planes come out that morning with white stripes around them. We didn't know this. We'd never seen this before. It was really a secret. It had been kept a good secret. All the American planes had white stripes around them, the gliders and all. The planes started going over, and we had battleships and destroyers firing over our heads, and I think it was 5,000 ships in that invasion. Everybody had a gun, was shooting, and they were shooting back. But somehow my boat got hit. I don't know what happened, whether we hit a mine or whether a shell hit us, and all I could feel was a tremendous heat on my body. And anybody who's been around dynamite or done a lot of dynamiting knows what I mean. It seemed like you inhale that smoke, fumes from that, makes you sick. But my body heated up. I could feel the heat in my body and the sickness feeling in there. But I was plumb out of it, and I come to, I hit in the water, and the water was icy cold, and it brought me to my senses. And I realized I was alive, but I began to trying to swim, and I was an expert swimmer because I was raised on the Kentucky River and had swum all my life. But I knew with all the equipment that I had on that I couldn't make it that far out. So I dumped everything I had, my full fill pack with everything I had in it, my raincoat, my extra shoes, socks, and everything, and tried to make it in with my rifle and gas mask, and made it to the obstacles there. And I was tired and give out because I had a lot of clothes on, and these clothes I had on was impregnated with a chemical in case the Germans gassed us. It would be protection. I had on long underwear, and then I had on OD pants, which is a wool dress pants, and then over top of the dress pants I had the regular fatigue pants, and I had, of course, the field jacket on top of that, and all of that, and it treated with this chemicals made them real heavy. And you know how our clothes are when they get wet and heavy, it's hard for you to swim. And I was give out, and I hung on to an obstacle there in the water, a metal obstacle, and the bullets was whizzing by me. I could feel the heat. They were so close to my face. I could feel the heat from the bullets. They were splattered all around me, but luckily none hit me. And after I kind of rested a while, I made it into the beach, and I would run a while, and then I'd have to fall because I was give out. And finally got into behind a kind of, as well as I remember, it was kind of a hill there, and I got in a rise there on the ground off of the beach, and I got it behind that. And most of that then, to me, is a nightmare. There was bodies all over the place, and there was blood and everything. You were stepping over your American soldiers, and some of them were begging for help and crying for help. I seen them with their face half blowed off, and some of them with their intestines hanging out, and they just look at you in a pitiful look because you couldn't do nothing for them. And another thing I seen there, well, those battleships firing over our head and everything, it would make big craters in the ground deep. I saw a cow, a French cow, flew right up in a tree. The tree was halfway. I was leaning over, and she was blew up in there. I didn't know anybody. I wasn't with anybody. I was completely separated from anybody that I knew. But I fought there that day till night come, and I got in a German foxhole. And I remember humping down in there, and then I got to wondering if the invasion had been a failure, and they had pulled out and left me, and I was by myself, and I expected Germans to come down and kill me at any minute while I was laying in my hole. There was flares going up would light the beach up, and just you could see a pin. There was mortar shells coming in on us, artillery shell coming in on us, machine gun fire, everything imaginable right on you. You could see the tracer bullets coming right at you. But I laid there in my foxhole with my bayonet on the end of my gun and put it in between my legs and let it stick up in the air in case they jumped in on me, they would hit the bayonet. That's all I knew to do. I spent some bad nights, but I think that was one of the worst nights of my life. The next morning, not knowing anybody or whether anybody was living or whether it had all been killed, there was an officer, the American officer, again, that hollered for people, and he said, we've got to get in, we've got to go in, or we're going to be killed here. So we started in. It was just backup troops that he could find. We were different outfits, and we fought our way in through a pillbox. It was mines. They had mines all over the place, and shoe mines all over the beach there. They were firing at us point blank. They had concrete bunkers there, and machine guns, and everything. Had that beach zeroed in. They didn't have to even look at you. They could just fire every so often and cover the whole beach. The beach was covered with dead, and you had to climb over them and wounded. But we got in a little bit, and seemingly for the next 3 days or so, I don't know how long, I just didn't remember much of anything. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I don't know how long. It went that way for a long time anyway. And finally I dug a foxhole one day and just fell off. I guess I just passed out and went to sleep. I remember waking up and I said, well, it was quiet. Some of them said, what are you talking about? They blasted us. All night long they fired on us, and I could find the pins out of the mortar shells all around my foxhole. The ground was like walking on mulch, if you can understand what I'm talking about, from the shell blast and things. When you walk on the earth, it's just like it'd be plowed field nearly. It was like walking on mulch. There was tree bark and stuff all together, and it had just churned it up that way. There was cattle walking around with their hips sticking out and their legs blowed off, and an awfulest mess I ever seen. Walked through that. Then into the hedgerows we went, and some of the hardest fighting I think could be anywhere in the world was in those hedgerows, because we fought hand to hand there, 100 yards apart. Sometimes in all-day fighting we'd gain 100 yards. We'd have to walk right into them, and them hid behind a thick hedgerow. We dug into them hedgerows like rats, and they called us hedgerow rats. We would dig into the hedgerow and carve a place back, and as long as we stayed there, we'd keep digging. You never stop digging. You dig deeper, deeper, deeper. You think you've got a hole deep enough, but then when the shells come in on you, you dig deeper and deeper. And I fought through the hedgerows like that, which was nearly suicide. And then the night patrols, we had to go on and walk into the minefield, getting trapped behind the German lines and all of that stuff. And I ended up on Hill 192 there on beside St. Lo. And that hill controlled all the roads coming into St. Lo, and it had to be taken before St. Lo could be taken. So they told us then, I think that was in July, I can't remember the date exactly, that we were going to try to break through, and I was in the 1st Army now, and if we could break through the lines, General Patton was going to come in with his 3rd Army and the Armored Division, and the country was flat in there, and he'd be able to move a lot faster and gain a lot more ground than what we had been gaining in all that time. But we had to take that Hill 192, which we named Purple Heart Hill, because we'd tried to go up it several times. Every time we had failed, and everybody was wounded or killed. But we finally taken it on that morning, and I remember seeing St. Lo as I looked down on it, and it was pretty. The sun was shining on it one morning, and the white stucco building showed up, and I remember a big church that I looked at and seen the steeple sticking up that reminded me of the Lord, and I remember that. But we finally, through a hard fight, it took that hill position, and then they was able to go through St. Lo. You can find that in a book called St. Lo, which it tells about it, and my outfit is in there. 2nd Division, 38th Infantry Regiment, Company L. We won a lot of awards. I also had the Presidential Citation with 3 Oak Leaf Clusters, Combat Infantry Badge, and many, many others. But I fought through that and through all 5 campaigns in Europe, and seen the Battle of the Bulge, and through there seen the dying of the troops, and some of the things that I could put on here maybe that a lot of people don't think about. It's not been in war, but after the Battle of the Bulge there, it snowed, and we saw through the cold and 0 temperature and froze our feet and our ears, and had to lay in the snow and freeze. And then when the snow started thawing, you could see a hand sticking up through the snow, or maybe a foot. And as the snow went down, you'd see 3 or 4 American bodies or German bodies laying there in the snow where they'd been killed, and it snowed over top of them. And then the snow had melted before they'd be found. You see bodies like that, Americans. It's hard on you when you see an American soldier laying in the filthy mud with his face down in the mud and his head coated with mud and blood. And I think, well, they'll send his parents, excuse me, they'll send his parents a notification that he died in battle, but they don't tell you that he was laying there covered in blood and how he died, or maybe been run over by a tank. You see American bodies that had fighting in Normandy there in June and July that would be laying out in the sun and swell up and bust. The clothes would pop off of them because the bodies got so big. That's American soldiers. I remember once going back to get water after a battle and seeing what we call the meat wagons. That was the trucks, 2.5-ton Army trucks, picking up their dead. And they would just throw them on the truck, one on top of the other one. And I seen this good-looking kid, blonde-headed boy, looked like about 18, perfect specimen of a man, with one arm hanging off of the truck and the other one off. Some of them with no head, or part of a head, or part of a face. A truckload of them, they just pitch them on there like that. And it takes something out of you. You can see the enemy dead, but when you see your own troops, that hurts. I remember those things, and they'll always be with me now. I'm 80 years old, nearly 81 right now, and it's never left me. I made the University of Kentucky made an oral history of my life and my combat experience at the University of Kentucky Library, which they have there, which I give all of my experience on there. But that's some of the things of war you don't think about when you see little children running around the streets and their parents dead and nothing to eat and no water to drink. That's French towns I'm talking about. We were liberating. We were driving the Germans out, but we had to do that. We had to destroy their town to do it. And you go through that horrible experience of those things, of hungry people and people starving and people dying. And then you remember what peace you had in the United States growing up. You remember the wonderful feeling it was to be able to get out. I thought how good it would be if I could lay down one night without thinking somebody's trying to kill me. If I could just go to sleep one night and sleep in peace. I could just rest. I'd sleep in my foxhole with the rain coming down on me and my clothes wet. And you couldn't get dry for days. Your clothes would mildew on you. You laid in the mud. Sometimes you had to go to the bathroom in your foxhole and shovel it out with your shovel. People don't think about that. They don't think about the stuff you go through. They say, well, a major battle, it's a major battle, but we fought a battle every day. My outfit was in combat, started from Omaha Beach there. I think it was out of a year, 337 days. You can run that up on the record, but I think that's right, that we was in combat, and that's every day. We was fighting every day of our life. And a combat infantryman don't last that long, and how I lasted, I don't know. I was hurt, and I guess maybe that saved my life for a while, but it's a terrible thing, this thing, war. to see young men in the situation that we was in, and I prayed an awful lot, and I think everybody did. And finally, I seen the end of the war in Germany, and I thought, Lord, I've lived through it. And then they started talking about Japan, and my division had been selected to make the invasion of Japan. And I thought, I can't make it no more. I just can't bear it no more. I can't go through no more than I've went through, the suffering I've been in, and the thing. But thanks to the Lord, it ended in Japan. And they criticized us for dropping the atomic bomb. But if you'd have been in our shoes, all of us are soldiers all over everywhere that America had them, in the Pacific and in places like that, and in Europe, what we went through with, and all at once you could have peace, and you could go home. And if it took that to drop that bomb, then it took it. And I stand by the president then and his decision that he made, because we didn't start this thing, and they would have done the same thing to us. I had a friend, Marsh was in the Bataan Death March. He went in, he was in the National Guard in Harrisburg, Kentucky. Marsh was. He was captured by the Japanese there. The first one to be captured was in the Bataan Death March. And he told me how they treated him, how they shot him in the head when they would fall out, and marched them barefooted sometimes on the blacktop till the meat come off with their feet. And they didn't give them any food or any water, and they'd been cut off and didn't have anything before they had to surrender. Put them on death ships down in the hull where there was nothing for them. And some of them tried to drink their own urine because they was dying for water. And most of them died. And how he got in Japan, how they worked him and mistreated him and told him they were going to kill him. And how that finally they had set a date that they was going to execute the group that he was with there. And just before the execution is when they dropped the atomic bomb. How do you think he felt and those boys felt if we hadn't have done that and let them been executed there? So you see, it saved a lot of lives. It saved not only American lives, but Japanese lives, because we went in, we had to kill every man, woman, and child there, or they would have killed us. So I think it was a right decision. What they done is a terrible decision. The first thing is war, and in war you have to accept anything that will happen. Anything you can win with, you win with. But I think of these things sometimes when I hear people talk and they don't know what people go through in war and what it really is. American people are fortunate people. You've not had bombs dropped on you. You've not seen the dead that I've seen. You've not seen the slaughter that I've seen. You've not suffered the things that we have suffered. I'm talking about the ones that died and the ones that are still living. We'll never get over it. Every night when there's a thunder at nighttime wakes me up. I have nightmares. And sometimes I tear up things in the house. I have to sleep now with a mattress on the floor and keep it so I won't come out of the bed and things like that. After all of these years now, all of these years since 1944, that has hung with me that way. I've raised 6 children and done real well, but I still have the flashbacks that they call it now, the flashbacks of the things that happened to me and the things I've seen happen. But I tried to dedicate my life to the Lord and do the best that I can do with it, and I have tried to do that. But this is some of the things that I just want to put on record, so it will be put down what war is and what you sending your young people into when you send them into it. And this is some of the things that I think needs to be told. I think the American people need to know what war is. They don't know. They don't really know. Only the ones that's lost sons, and they don't know what they went through with. They don't know how the suffering they put up with. So I'll try it. That's the reason I'm putting this on you. And hope that it'll be a help to somebody. I was over in France and Germany and Belgium and Holland and Czechoslovakia for quite a while after the war ended before I got home, because they had so many of us over there. They didn't have enough ships to get us out. And a few other things happened that delayed my coming to the United States. But what a wonderful day it was, the 7th day of December in 1945, when I got on the boat at Marsh, France, and they said, "You're going home." And how I thanked the Lord when I walked up the gangplank that I was alive. We come out to the Straits of Gibraltar, out by the Azores Island, run into a tremendous storm that nearly destroyed our boat. And I thought, well, I haven't made it home yet. But I landed in Newport News, Virginia, and come on to Fort Knox, Kentucky, where I was discharged December the 28th, 1945. And I've lived a good life since then, had a hard time trying to make a living, but I've raised a family and been a good citizen of this country. I spoke all over the place, University of Kentucky, different schools and high schools and churches, giving my testimony, telling some of the things that happened to us, some of the horrors of war. I remember in fighting in Brest, France, we captured some German soldiers, and one of the soldiers had been wounded. We fought at Brest, France there for, I think, 30 days before they would surrender, and they only told us they'd surrender then if we wouldn't let Adolf Hitler know it. He'd ordered them to hold out till death. There was terrible fighting there, and they finally surrendered, and this one German soldier was wounded. Some of them didn't have any shoes on. They had been wounded, took the shoes off, and then I guess didn't ever get them back. And this one was wounded real bad, and he couldn't walk, and his buddy was trying to pack him piggyback on his back. We had to march about 7 miles to put him on a train and going to take him to Marsh, France, and then they were going to send him to the United States for prisoner of war. And I had some new fellows come in my outfit that hadn't been in combat, and they had told us that if any of these fell out, that it can't fall out. You've got to get them in there dead or alive. But as we started out, this one soldier trying to pack this wounded one, and I remember this wounded German soldier looking at me, and I looked at him. Our eyes locked together. He was pale, and he was dirty, and his eyes was pleading for help. And I felt about as bad. We were about as bad as they were. We were tired, and we were beaten too. But he was helpless. He was crippled. And the guy was packing him, had to go down. He couldn't pack him. And this new guy in my outfit said, "I'm going to shoot him." And I said, "No, you're not going to shoot him. If you do, I'll shoot you." He's whipped. And I know they had killed our troops. I'd seen that happen. They'd lined up in the field and shot him in the head. I'd seen that. But I didn't want to do that to a man that was helpless. I could see myself in him. And I said, no. I got another soldier, or two more of the German soldiers, and had to pack him that way one at a time till we got him to the train and put him on there. And I wondered if you ever thought, now here's a man that had been shooting at me, had killed my buddies for days there in Hobby fighting, and yet I spared his life. But I'm saying that in this words because I believe if a man is defeated, he's defeated. I believe if he's surrendered, then he should have a right for life. And I told this young man that wanted to kill him, I said, you'll get your change. You'll get your change when one's got the same change as you have, and it'll be a lot different then. But anyway, that stuck with me. I never got over it. And these are some of the things that I'll put on here that I hope give somebody the how war is and what it is. In 1999, I went back to to France and Omaha Beach. Took my oldest daughter with me to see the cemetery there where they were buried in Omaha. And what a feeling that was when I walked up there and seen all the crosses there and the beautiful cemetery on the beach there where we'd fought so hard. So many years and years ago, that was a long time. I went in there in 44, and now this was 99. I was an old man. But I got to see that and went back to the battlefields where I had fought at St. Lo and in the Siegfried line where the Germans had their Siegfried line. I went to Holland and Belgium, Luxembourg, and all of those places where I'd fought and seen the battlefields where I'd fought. The trees had grown back and the grass had grown. I seen towns that was torn up that now with people working and children playing, and that made me feel good. I felt like maybe we accomplished something there, and I remember I can't explain to you how it felt to walk on the same grounds that I'd walked on and fought on when I was 19, 20 years old, and then go back as an old man and see some of the bullet holes still in the places. At St. Lo, the church that I'd talked about previously seeing, I saw it and went into it and saw the scars on the outside. The French still seeing some of the shells in some of the towns that I'd fought in. I was a BAR man and a rifleman, but where I'd set my BAR up and fired around the corners, and at the buildings I could see the buildings where I had hit with my Browning automatic. The old bullet holes were still there. Took my daughter through all of the defense places that the Germans had there, the Siegfried line. We seen the Maginot line, the French line, which I had seen, and the pillboxes that the Germans lived in. She was amazed at that, how thick they were of concrete and steel and underground, where you could cook, eat, sleep, have everything in there, and look right out on us as wherever we was attacking them to come in. I remember all of those things vividly in my mind. But I enjoyed that trip going back there and taking my daughter with me, and had the French people were good to us. They met us with their bands in the towns that we had liberated, and they would have wine for us and meals for us. In St. Malo, I believe it was St. Malo, the mayor of St. Malo adopted us all. He said, "You're all the citizens of St. Malo. You can come here and live the rest of your lives as you want to as citizens of this town. We'll take care of you." I thought that was great for him to say that. It made you feel good. Also, later on in just last year, I think it was last year in 2003, they called me to the state capitol in Frankfort, Kentucky, and the ambassador of France was there, and they had the ones that made the invasion of France there at D-Day, and the French ambassador awarded us with a certificate from the French government thanking us for the liberation of France in 1944 and 1945. So I have that little thing on my wall here. I have a thing from General Eisenhower that he gave us when we went in. It's really a nice piece that he told about and what was expected of us and what was in front of us. That the whole world depended on us that morning on June 6, 1944, was the balance of the war. That was the beginning and the end of Adolf Hitler and his regime. And a bunch of kids, 18, 19, 20 years old, had met the greatest German army of all time and defeated the supermen that Hitler had. We come from the country, we come from the city, we come from the backwoods and the mountains of Kentucky, Tennessee, and places like that. But we had won the battle. We'd stood for our country and fought for our freedom. And I hope that freedom stands, and I hope people understand what it takes to get freedom, what some people have to go through. Now we're going through the war in Iraq, and young men are dying again over there, dying terrible deaths. But we have to keep our faith and believe in what we believe in, and keep our country strong and all. We have to have some young people sometimes that has to step up and go in and take the charge and take the cup that delivered them. I remember and give thanks this day for all of my buddies that died in that war, and all the sacrifice of the ones that are still living, because the ones of us still living has wounds that will never heal. And some people think, well, you were lucky, but you don't know what we go through with in our lives sometimes, what it done to our life. We come out and done the best we could do, made a living, raised a family, good citizens of this country. So I'll shut this off and hope and pray that whoever listens to it, put your faith in the Lord and believe in your country. And I ask this with all fairness and all goodness from my heart. Peace be with you.